Well, let's do this.
You gotta go from the.
Let's have a toast. Get your glass.
Oh God.
But first, we do.
First we do.
Nou jongens, succes allemaal.
Gauwetjes.
Glasnost.
Goed.
Proost.
All right. Well,
that's a wrap.
We're going to talk about the festival. What do you want to say?
It happened.
We just got back.
It's Sunday afternoon. Just wrapped up a
day and a half.
About an hour ago. And started. You folks arrived. I was there earlier than you. Arrived on what proved to be a very rainy, drippy afternoon. Friday, the 26th. And then people were dribbling in, and there started to be already a vibe of, we didn't know each other. Some people knew each other, but you'd introduce yourself, where are you from? I'm from Germany, I'm from the Netherlands, but then you'd start getting, South Africa and Ticino in Switzerland, the Italian part, and it just started to feel more full of people who were all there. They were hungry. And then you folks arrived at what time?
11:45.
Pretty late.
Yeah, at first they said, Paul and them are going to be here around 9, and then 10, and 11:45. And was it raining heavily when you arrived?
No, but it was started to rain when we got there. We brought the rain, Germany, to end the drought.
Yes.
Pretty much, you have us to thank.
Yeah, and we had some pretty good rainfalls during particularly the first 2 days.
Yeah.
And but then it was actually the rain added to the festival. It created a sort of, people all had to be under the tent. There was this nice white tent that was there, and you just felt kind of huddled in there. And I think things like that kind of bring people together really add to the spirit of an event.
I think so too. I had a good feeling about it right from the beginning. We huddled masses yearning to breathe free and dry under the tarp. And that evening we had to pull the Donk out of there because I knew he's like an extroverted fish in people water, and he was already starting to swim. And so then I tried to rally the troops and say, okay, let's go out of here to this place. And so we got about 10 minutes into our drive, and what did Job say? The only practical one among us. Does anyone have a key? Oh no.
I forgot about
So then we tried to turn around and drive back and get the key, and then we drove.
But then I said to Job, they said it was a 15-minute ride, and Job said to me, no, it says 7 minutes.
Yeah, I thought it was really fortunate.
Yeah.
So we went to the correct address in the wrong town, and Job
Actually walked up to the door,
of some
knocked on the door, but
I'm
some stranger's house.
suspecting-
We didn't realize it was the wrong town yet, but we were about to find out.
driving through these thin hedges.
And Job, describe what the guy was like when you went up to the door.
Very suspicious. And I explained in broken German, like, oh, well, is this the holiday home? No. By that time it started dawning on me, like, okay, key doesn't work. Suspicious inhabitant.
Oh yeah, he tried to use the key on that door.
Did you knock or anything, or just drive the key?
No, I tried the key, and it doesn't work. Then I knocked on the door. I mean, a couple of things that Matthias had said, combined with all those other factors, led me to the conclusion that this was probably not the right house. So I said, sorry, and ran back in the pouring rain to the car. And then John van Donk successfully managed to turn. It was really tight.
It should have been a 3-point turn, but it ended up being more like 5 or 6 point turn.
Because you didn't see
Oh, well, that was
anything.
because
It was a
in
teeny
the rain.
Pouring rain, it's pitch dark.
And out of my car.
The dude's standing outside just looking at us still, and Job's like, let's go, let's get out of here.
The entire time that John was trying to turn, the guy is giving us the area eyeball, like, what the fuck's going on with this Dutch car?
Now, you drop the F-bomb for an American audience.
I'll be editing this, don't you?
And I won't. Keep going, Job.
Fine. And then we drive out and John yelled something incomprehensible at the guy.
What did you yell at him?
Right address, wrong town.
No, you yelled
you
something
didn't.
that was
You
not-
didn't say that.
No, it was something else.
I'm sure you said something much more
In
provocative.
terrible German, you yelled something, and I can't remember what it was, but it probably didn't help our reputation with the poor guy.
I meant to say, whatever language I used, right address, wrong town.
Okay, well, anyway, that will do. And then we drove on to the house, and
Wagenstraße, verkeerde Stadt.
Yeah, we drove onto the house in the pouring rain.
yeah, that was fun. But then it turned out to be a great place.
Beautiful home.
Yeah.
Beautiful home.
Yeah.
So if you ever need to stay someplace near here,
But we
find out where this place is and stay here.
what's the name of the little village we're in?
I have no idea.
And you?
Hudson,
Something like that.
It's a
Hatzenbull, it says it right there, Hatzenbull.
used to be tobacco
This is tobacco country.
country.
But then you talked to the people yesterday. Tell us a little bit about them. Or this morning.
This morning.
This place did not, the guy did not actually grow tobacco. This was a commercial tobacco drying facility
For curing it.
for curing it. So farmers would bring their crop here and then they would, for a fee, dry it and store it.
Okay. So Friday morning or Saturday morning, the festival began in earnest,
Mhm.
and Jan van Donk was the first one out of the gate.
I found that amazing. I did not expect that.
And how did you feel about your performance?
Well, Cassidy gave a little
Yeah,
pre-game spiel.
yeah. How did you feel about your talk?
Well, I covered all the bases that I wanted to cover, and I felt good about the presentation, and I felt good about the seeming engagement of the audience. But you were probably as good a judge of any then of the reaction. So I got a lot of positive feedback. So.
I thought
Yeah.
it went well.
Yeah, it was a very clear talk. You iterated the important points.
Yes. Well, you were talking about the estuary protocol. In other words, and just in case someone isn't familiar with it, why don't you explain what estuary is? Somebody. Just
Estuary
super
is
briefly.
Estuary is Paul's bright idea to rebrand what used to be Jordan Peterson meetup groups in the absence of Jordan Peterson. And then, if we're going to rebrand it anyway, we may as well try to think through what the space is that we're trying to create. And it is very much a space between the gathering of Christians, whether it be a church or a Christian community or a parish or whatever religion, on the one hand, and a more non-religious, a little bit more detached, wild and woolly place out in the world. And so somewhere in between, it is possible for people to have conversations. We like to think that it is. And we imagined that by looking at the estuary as the space between the river and the sea, this place that is constantly changing, is very much subject to waves and currents and always changing and somewhat chaotic.
Where the anadromous fish swim up.
Yeah.
And the bears and the eagles and the other creatures are out to eat them.
And in the symbolic world, it's the narthex. And of course, nobody knows what that word means out there, except if you're in the symbolic world and paying attention to those things. It's a space where, for me, where we can have productive conversations with people coming from different places. And from my point of view, it's a place where the church can productively engage with all kinds of people who have all kinds of ideas from all kinds of places.
Who do not necessarily share their faith commitments.
No, absolutely not.
And then we broke down for the small groups to practice what you were discussing as far as...
Yeah, in my group it went perfect.
Yeah. I overheard Paul's group. I was working on my coming speech, but I had to restrain myself from entering the dialogue because I said,
And Joe was our leader in that little group, and I thought it went very well.
Yeah. Luckily this time I taken the liberty to get some clarification on how exactly to run these meetings from John, because we tried this during the Dutch event and I noticed I had a bit of trouble figuring out where exactly the different aspects of the protocol fit in. But that went really well. People brought good things forward. We very quickly came to a conclusion or an agreement on what we wanted to discuss. And there was some pretty personal stuff discussed as well. That's not always necessary, but in this case it happened and it was dealt with well. So I was really happy with how it went. And then I actually don't know how the other groups did, but have you heard from them about that, John? How other groups did?
No. No, I'm so self-absorbed, I only paid attention to my own group.
Okay, well,
Well, I didn't know how long we were supposed to be, and we were getting to the top of the hour, and I felt that our conversation had sort of landed, and so I recommended that we dismissed, and then we got out there, and all the other groups were still going, which to me was an excellent sign, and then the people from our group sort of huddled up again, a few of them, and continued their conversation. To me, in an event like this, you can gauge success if you find people who keep talking to one another. So like every time the official meeting breaks up, they're huddling up. And the real judge of success is that you don't have sort of wallflower stragglers.
I was going to bring that up. You often see that in a new tech meetup, for instance. You have some insecure people, and they will basically stand back to the wallflower. You're saying, I haven't seen it at all.
No.
Well, that is the very purpose of the estuary protocol. It is to draw everyone, introvert and extrovert alike, into the conversation and to give everybody an equal opportunity to put a topic on the table, and once the topics have been put on the table, to participate in selecting from the stuff that's on the table something that is deserving of our attention to discuss the remainder of the time. And so it's kind of a democratic process. It kind of keeps the extroverts that are talking non-stop about their favorite hobby horse a little bit under control, and it brings more introverted people into the conversation. So that's what it's supposed to do.
But of course, we have to take into consideration that the people who attended were just, I was so impressed by, everyone I talked to, their motivations for being there, their thirst, their hunger for meaning and learning and wanting to understand. So I think that was, and plus, they're coming, it's not in your hometown, they're coming from away, and sometimes far away. Israel's, I think, the farthest, but one guy was from South Africa, so that beats everybody else.
Oh, he was
Studying,
But he was studying here, but still.
But the interesting thing, to your point right there, is that, I think it's a proper observation that these people were primed, but they were particularly primed because Teddy had organized prior estuary meetings online.
Mm-hmm.
He asked me to lead them, and so I had seen quite a few of these people online already. We had actually done estuary meetings online already, so quite a few people that were there were familiar with the process and the protocol. So, and then there were some people from ELSNET, the Estuary Leader Support Network. They were there, and they, of course, are super familiar with the protocol because I do that all the time online. So it was really fun to see people that I had never met before except online. I was so surprised when I got there on Friday how many people I knew by face. I know you or you or you or. I've never met these people before.
You were super happy.
Oh man!
This has been the John Van Donk Happiness Tour. Every place we go, John is super happy. We have Hodding, we have Dutch Estuary, now we have all these people he meets, all new estuary leaders. John Van Donk Happiness Tour, that's what this is. So, all right, so we had the practice estuary, then Byrne.
Then we went out and had the special dinner.
Oh, yes.
With a very
speaker's
wonderful,
lunch.
the speaker's lunch, thank you. Where just absolutely wonderful Italian food, and that was great. It lasted a little long, so we got back later, at least a half hour later than we thought we were going to. But and
that was expected.
Then it was my turn to give a lecture, basically 3 visions of reality. And I was mostly just describing the way life was when I was young, before the 60s really erupted. Then this big age of transformation in between, and then what's happened recently. We've had another break in culture or sometime around 2011, 2012.
Keep talking.
Just
2/3.
You can come back. I think this is easy. But,
No, I'm not editing, so
No,
you
no,
keep talking.
but I do
He
that,
never edits nothing.
no, but if I get him to send me his part, this is tech talk, but if I get him to send me his part, I can put these two together and it'll look professional.
that's
See, we'll look professional. And, look, not
Just like Daily Wire.
okay. Thank you for the political comment. But no, I thought it went pretty well. I had lots of people coming up to me later and saying that they were thinking about what I was saying. Plus, I did what I always do, is just throw in lots of examples and illustrations of different aspects at different times. And so, I mean, how was it for you? You guys were out there. I just have my own perspective.
I couldn't tell from during the speech, but it was clear from the Q&A after that a lot of people were listening and tracking, and you got a lot of good questions and good response from people on it. So I think it went well.
There was a lot to process.
Yeah, that's my fault. Is I tend to load the thing up and just.
And all of these sessions were recorded, and so at some point they'll be released. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to be released, but
On Cassidy's channel, I think.
I was talking about what I found difficult is to keep track of everything that was being said. A couple of key slides would have been really useful,
Yeah.
or to kind of look back, like, okay, remember this,
If
remember that.
we were doing it indoors, I would have.
Right.
But outdoors, it's just impossible to use visuals.
And alternatively, sometimes you would name a concept that, like, oh yeah, I vaguely know what it is, but then an example would be really good.
Well, what I actually plan on doing, after the official version is released, I'm going to simply make a video of all the same stuff, but really then use all of the visual, audio stuff to give people an idea of how people actually lived. You know, like I kept referencing film noir, and I got a certain amount of blank faces, but you won't have blank faces by the time I'm showing you Humphrey Bogart saying something like, I gotta keep some tabs on this affair, this dizzy affair, you know, it's just like that kind of like 6 to an even, they're selling you out, sonny. You know, there's that kind of language, because that kind of language does not exist in the same way anymore, you know.
well, I was, one of the things, people were drawn here from lots of different places in the world, especially lots of different countries of origins, and the one of the amazing things was that the event went as well as it did, and I think all of the presentations did, even though it's kind of hard to count on a universal canon that they're all working from.
Mm-hmm.
So I think really integrating your talk with
Right.
the way you edit, that'll be spectacular.
Yeah. Well, I see it myself as connected to what you are doing,
Yeah.
but it's like if we do a triangle between Vervaeke and Jonathan Peugeot and yourself, and put something of what's going on in there, then over here is the Jordan Peterson Cathedral, this big building. But I'm kind of out here, kind of beyond you, just sort of doing this other thing, but it's totally connected, but I'm working much more with culture.
Yeah. So, good. So then I don't even remember what I talked about.
You talk about hiding quite a bit.
I think you talked a lot about relationship.
I talked a lot about relationships.
Things got relational.
Things got very relational. There was hugging.
Yeah.
There were tears.
Yeah.
I thought my talk went well.
Yeah.
Again, I don't even remember what I talked about. I'd have to look up my notes that I barely used, but tried to integrate some things, and I really.
No, the Stones. That was the big thing. The Stones crying out.
Well, that I got from the New World podcast, which also will be coming out some part, and I brought that in, right?
Yeah.
Brought in the Stones here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you talked about all the spaces we actually visited along the way, both
Yep.
in Holland
Yep.
and in Germany,
Yep.
and how those spaces made an impression on you or on us, and we talked about it, and then you tried to cast that in a wider light of how people connect with one another, and if those relationships don't fly, then the Stones will talk about God in the culture.
Yeah, yep. So that's what I did, and I thought it went well. And then we sat down and took question and answer from people.
Yeah, Paul and I were sitting there, and between the two concepts, but often these things overlapped in very interesting ways, I felt.
So that went well, and then we had dinner. Or did we have dinner? What did we do?
We had chili con carne or sin carne.
And
some
Yeah.
salad.
This was a
Right.
collective dinner for everyone.
Yeah.
In a kind of a picnic style, but with everyone at different tables.
but provided by the venue.
Provided by,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And then I was beat, so I got someone to take me home. Got a poltergeist back there with the door.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the door.
I got a dry throat.
I'm gonna, oops, this turn.
I know, I keep drinking and it doesn't fix it. Now we're having a full-on break. You still got battery life?
Oh yeah, I put a new battery in there.
Oh, okay.
So it's good for one like long burn session of talking.
If you can, if you use a power brick, some of these things you can power them from the brick and you can
Right.
go a long, long time. So,
You need more water?
sure. Thanks.
Since you said you would drive through.
This is a pause, and during this pause, we'd like to recommend Sony audio-visual recordings. This
Yeah.
camera is a
Now
Sony.
that I got in
Works.
2012, and it works so good because I just put it close up, and then when I edit it, I dovetail everything together. And then what it does is it provides the really best sounding version of the audio.
And where is it available?
Good question. I got it in 2012, so you figure it out.
Maybe you can't even buy it anymore. I'm
Maybe.
sure Sony has a company.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something. But I've used it for all of my interviewing of puppeteers.
Oh.
And so I have that there. Sometimes the audio will go out, but I still have that and I can always work with that.
That's good.
Unfortunately, sometimes it's the other way around. And then it's really bad.
Yeah. All right, because sound is what's important in these videos. People don't know, but they do know when they listen. Okay, so
This is our transition
so what happened?
from Saturday to Sunday.
So I came home because I was wasted. No, I mean I was tired. I mean I didn't have anything.
Well, you got a ride over here a couple hours early.
A couple hours early, and I could
While
take a
we
shower
were
and
all
just-
waiting for the concert to start.
Yes.
Yeah.
And apparently the concert started,
Yeah,
unbeknownst to
but
us.
we didn't go because we were all kind of tired.
No, we didn't know.
And
I had no
oh, I
idea.
knew.
You knew.
Oh yeah, but it was just going to start around.
You just left me in the dark.
10:30. We didn't know you wanted to stay.
You were having conversations with people. Maybe now's a good time to talk about. You don't have to get specific, but talk about the quality of the conversations
A plus.
that we've had with people
plus.
here.
I mean, seriously, A plus.
Yes.
I mean, because it's the only thing I can compare it to is a certain epochs at Le Brie in Switzerland when I was there, and you'd meet these people, and they were all there with questions, and they wanted to talk, and that's how this was. People were there wanting to talk. In fact, by the time we left, some of them were in tears because it was ending, and it's a special moment. But I had so many interesting conversations, different kinds of conversations too.
Yeah.
It wasn't all one kind of conversation. It wasn't all like, yeah, I came here because of Paul, and then Jonathan Peugeot and this sort of stuff. It was this thing of I'm looking for. This is it's like I know this is something important. We're doing something. We don't have a definition for it yet, but it's reaching to try to reinstitute real human conversation again, meaningful conversation, instead of, as often happens in America, geeky conversation about television shows and video games. But rather, this was about what is life about? What about the pain in life? But what about all these really interesting things as well? And I just was A plus. Even talking with Joe.
Job's always an A+ conversation
Joe.
partner.
Joe was fine.
Job's always an A+ conversation partner. You'd look at my channel; it's all right there.
And Job was in this whole world right from day one. You were there right from the beginning.
Were you there before me, watching Paul? When
Oh,
did
yeah.
you start?
Yeah.
Were you 2016?
He was one of my early conversations.
And Job predates the Bridges of Meaning.
Oh yeah, but so do I.
Yeah, you might have been before me.
Well, I started watching, I think around February 2017.
Yeah.
If I would, I think I discovered.
No. That would be February 2018 because I started in November of 2017.
Yeah, they were put it around the same time.
Okay, wait a second. Okay, that makes sense, yeah, because I was in Tbilisi when I discovered you. And I discovered your stuff at that time, the algorithms were so favorable to you. Just type in Christianity,
It's
Jordan
true.
Peterson,
Whoosh.
right there.
And then Google,
Messed it up.
why no love? Why no love, Goog? But no, and you know, before we started recording, actually, Job had made a comment that, you know, sometimes he feels like he's on the sidelines of this, and I don't see that at all. Just because Job's not always up giving a presentation or explaining the estuary protocol or talking about how we got here, I think Job's, well, you were the pastor of the Discord server.
That's huge.
For a long time.
That's how a lot of that
and
trust was established.
I think for many people, Job is sort of an older brother in that they see Job's story and their story, and they have some confidence that they are heading in the right direction because they see that
There's hope.
Job has been heading in the right direction. And so I don't know.
It's not a negative comment that I made. It's some kind of something I'm working through. Like, where was the idea come from? Look, I asked a question during the Q&A. I said, hey, given your knowledge about history, Byrne, do you see this as this movement, this thing, this community, as history repeating? And I think maybe the underlying question was, do you see a pattern re-establishing itself? Is this an old thing again? Is this debris but different? And the reason I asked that is because I'm still trying to figure out, is this something that is just flash in the pan, something really short and temporary? Or is this really something that can persist? Is this something that has happened many times over again? We find ourselves in a pattern through history, and it seems new to us, but in the grand scheme it's not. That's what I'm trying to work through.
Is there historic precedent for this?
Is this...
Well, consider this. You started doing convos about, what, early 2018?
Early 2018.
Yeah, that's when I remember the first one with Job. We're almost 5 years on this.
Yeah.
So that's not a flash in the pan, just right there. And I think it's connected to things in the past like liberty. There are little threads that move through it. I'm one of them. But it's also, I think, we are responding. We're in a moment where, for instance, this Orthodox revival, that's connected to this moment. The alternative media, some more propagandistic than others, but that's connected to this moment. What was the IDW, the intellectual dark web, came and went in a way, but nevertheless, that's part of this moment. And we'll see more manifestations, Substack, Unheard, these online magazine kind of institutions. That's a part of this moment. I think those are all good signs. And it's about conversation, it's about dialogue. You know, we often hear the word free speech, and I think free speech is coming from the people who remember the last epoch between the 60s and, about 10 years ago. And often you'll see those people questioning these people. The younger people don't quite get it, but I think conversation, real dialogue is like, it's like a meal. It's like nutrition. And if you don't get the right thing, if your conversation is just about the Marvel Comics universe films, that is, you're not going to get, you're eating sugar cookies. You're eating Mars bars. You're not eating real food, and eventually you suffer for it. And I think some of the defects of this age come from that suffering.
So here's the thing. Can I go a bit on a tangent?
Go for it.
Because it kind of hooks into what you say. When we had the conversation in Utrecht, let me backtrack a bit and try to phrase this carefully. What I found in the last 4 years on the Discord, during real life meetings, during an event in the Netherlands, during the conversation on the West Coast, often people will very quickly want to share things that are very personal. Often, very often, they include suffering. I've thought about why that is. I've tried to figure out why that is. There was a conversation, maybe it was you, Byrne, who pointed it out, that in America, there's a taxi driver, and in no time you find out she's had an abortion or something like that. Somebody made a comment like that. I've tried to connect those two things. Like, is that the same? Is it strange, bad? I mean, to me, it seems extremely meaningful in the sense that it means that these people feel that finally they have somebody that they can share these things with, who will take it seriously, who will try to maybe help them work through it. Not necessarily in a therapeutic sort of way, but who knows? I mean, I'm processing this as I go. So, what is that, and does it have to do with the fact, if you read C.S. Lewis's A Grief Observed, he writes that people will avoid you because of the grief. I've reworded it. I've said to somebody, "Oh, grief is sticky." I don't think that Lewis said that, but I think it's similar in that way that it kind of sticks to you, and you know, then you touch somebody and it kind of it sticks to them. They don't feel right, so they kind of want to get away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Which may prevent us from sharing these things that we need to share to work through them, to deal with them. But you don't know how the other one might respond, and it seems that we've hit on a particular type of community where that thing is welcomed, where it's recognized, and it doesn't make it any less difficult to deal with it, but you can tell that so many Discord conversations I've had that it just surfaces very quickly, like, you will understand this thing, this pain, this suffering, this event that happened, this thing I'm trying to work through. Let's talk about it together. Maybe you know something that connects to it, and we can both sort of, I don't know, work through this existence. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out, and that's why I'm wondering, like, is this thing a reaction to something else? To another, you know, to maybe the times, so yeah.
Well, Paul has a style when he does his rando conversations that's very pastoral and very affirming and accepting and very gracious, and people feel comfortable sharing some deep personal journeys with you. And so there is that has a certain effect, because when you publish those conversations, then other people say, "Oh, he allows people to go there. Well, I got a story. Maybe he'll let me go there." So now you have more people signing up for randos. It's almost like a self-selecting process as a result of your very pastoral posture, and people say, "That guy, I can tell him shit that I can't tell him again."
While knowing that it may go online.
While knowing that it may go online. And then he becomes known, this becomes known as the place where you can go and talk about anything, including your deepest pain and trauma. And now that community organizes itself into the Bridges of Meaning. And this community organizes a festival. And guess who shows up at the festival? The people who know that the thing that evolved around Paul, around his pastoral presence, that thing is a welcoming place for my deepest pain. And I heard some stuff today, it blows your mind.
So did I, yeah.
Yeah, about attempted suicides, and about marriage breaking down, and about families completely destroyed, and all the stuff that people carry around with them. And then somehow it comes out. I don't want to preempt your sermon today, so when you're done talking about your sermon, I want to say something about something else that you triggered in people that I think is in this same vein, because your message did the same thing. It said to people, well, anyway, he preached a really good sermon today. That's what he did.
Well, my feeling about what you're saying, I think you're absolutely right, is that we live in a society now where families have been hit by all of the debris from the post-war era, the fathers who never could talk to their children about the war, and then later the Vietnam vets and other people, but also the families have been, divorce, all of these things have been taking their toll. people don't know how to talk anymore. They don't, the pastors in many churches, they don't, without naming the church, I was part of a church for quite a while where the pastor gave fairly good sermons, but he was not much of a pastoral person, if you get my meaning, in terms of going up and talking with them. What was ironic was before that, there was someone who gave terrible sermons, but he was more pastoral, and he would come over and visit you and things like that. But I think we're in a place where these things are confusing to people. But then, if so many people aren't even going to church,
That's the big thing.
they're not getting any.
That's the big thing.
They don't have a place to go to talk to. And their friends, today people's friends tend to just encourage them to be themselves. Encourage them to, don't let anyone tell you you're wrong. Go out and be yourself. Well, everyone knows that we're doing something that isn't, there's things in us, motivations and things that are not good. And we need we need people around us who will interact with that and say, so what's going on here? Is that part of your life? Why are you doing this? And I think then you add on to it what's happened with social media in the last 10 years. And the divisions of people afraid to say things because they're afraid of being canceled.
Pounds.
Not just cancelled, but to be just raked over the coals for trying to work through something in public.
Yep.
Or in semi-public, in online space. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, because
Well,
you sometimes say that you are bewildered at the tone and the politeness of your comment section. It really is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Because the kind of vicious meanness that you sometimes see in comment sections, we hardly ever see it.
Yeah, I actually don't get it at all, hardly. I've had maybe one or two comments in the last, 3 years.
Yeah, I'm talking about Paul's channel right now.
Yeah, but I'm saying that the same thing is happening. And I think it's because
You set a standard somehow.
I set a standard,
Yeah.
and I also interact with people quite a bit as in the comment section. And the standard is, when there have been a few people who've done something, I'm just not, if they're just, you can tell they're little wasps who want to sting. And it's just like, you're gone. They just disappear. And the people who stay are the people with questions, the people like today. And I think Paul has set an example of that just in your discussions with people. One of the great cases is Sam, the heretic.
Yeah.
and everyone kind of, Sam the heretic, And Sam, there's an aspect of him, he wants to get into talking about some doctrinal things, and yet at the same time, you just absorb him. You just like, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah.
And then came the sermon.
And then, so we had breakfast this morning, and then I preached my sermon, and I thought a lot about the setting this morning because it was listed as a sermon, and part of Estuary, when we started doing the meetups, I intentionally never opened or closed with prayer because I suspected, and it's very true of the Sacramento meetup, that many, if not most of the people are not Christians, and
Would rather not pray.
not only that they would rather not pray,
It's religious.
but it's also why, when I pray as a pastor in the context of a group, I am in a sort of a priestly fashion praying on behalf of the group. Those individuals, that's not what they're interested in at the moment, and I think it's a little presumptive to sort of foist that upon them. I think it's respectful to not foist that upon them. So, and so I talked about the setting, and I connected that then with Exodus, because of course Peterson is in Exodus, and I wanted, in the talk the day before, I did talk a lot about buildings and towers and the things that I've been seeing in Europe, and then I wanted to connect that with what's happening in the Church of Europe and what a church is, and then this long line of Sinai and tabernacle and then temple and then synagogue and temple and synagogue and then Christ and new heavens and new earth. So kind of draw out the story of the Bible. So, and I thought it went well.
It's a sermon without a liturgy, and not knowing whether we are actually in some kind of a service or what, and if it's not a service, then Why does it need a sermon? And
Yeah. We don't
I
know.
thought
what
those
we're
were fun
doing there.
questions. I thought it was really fun when you played around with that a little bit, because your own ambivalences kind of became apparent, but that is also the ambivalences of the estuary.
Yeah.
Because that is precisely because we are a space in between.
Yeah.
We're not exactly one and we're not exactly the other. So I thought you laid that out beautifully in that it creates a certain tension, but that is what the estuary is. It's a place of a certain tension.
And one of the people there today, after the sermon, came up and said, "You do know that we're just on the fringe of Landau, and you do know we are in a walled garden." So he was catching all of the.
Well, this one guy, Gordon from Macedonia,
Yeah.
he said to me, "I've never heard a sermon before."
I love that guy. He was so enthusiastic.
Yeah, it was
He
fun.
all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought the sermon went very well, and so then what do we do after the sermon?
Well, in the sermon,
Oh yeah, you want to go back to the sermon?
yeah, in the sermon came the point of the people searching for a home.
Yes.
And when we left today, fast forward a little bit, one of our friends was in tears, and then we kind of pushed that bubble a little bit, you know.
Of course you did.
Can you-
That's John's job.
Right.
That's John's job.
Can you add words to the tears? That's all I asked. I said, can you add words to the tears? And he said, I so feel like I'm longing and looking for a home, and I can't find it.
Yeah.
Those were huge words coming out of that guy's mouth, because he is very much of an extrovert, and he's very well connected, and he knows how to reach out to people and find himself in places, and yet at the core of his being, he feels like he has no home. That's huge. And for somebody to say that to some friends, I think the fact that we were able to set that tone, I think you did a great thing.
And John Vervaeke often talks about the fact that domicide is one of these contributing elements of the meaning crisis. And this for me has been my first trip to Europe, and I'm trying to get my mind around what Europe is, and I'm struck by how you have all of these different countries that are, they sort of have borders, but they're almost like state borders rather than, they are state borders, but, and you have, I mentioned that at the beginning of the 20th century, you had England, Germany, and Russia, whose leaders were all, cousins. And this land, which is many lands, quite regularly tears each other apart and then goes back over, and they're all right next to each other in this back and forth. And it also struck me how many people came to this event who are now living in Europe, but from someplace a little distant, and I think this idea of domicide, of not having a stable home, yet here in Europe, one person asked me, what did I know the difference between Europe and America that I saw? This land has memory, which America doesn't have. I mean, things go deep here, and the people carry the memory in a way. But now this new generation, many of whom have been, when did the EU start?
60s.
Yeah. So many of whom are sort of, there's also a tension in the group between globalist and whatever is nationalist or regionalist but there's very much a tension there, because in a lot of ways the festival itself was rather global, people from all over, and those tensions that I talked about in the New World podcast that were brought to me in terms of English language. Yet this domicide and exile, I think, is very much an element of this generation. And one of the things we talked about is none of the four of us, I mean, you're living in an Orthodox country, none of the four of us are Orthodox, but we're here in some ways midwifing an Orthodox revival. And I think part of that hunger for orthodoxy is a hunger for home. That people are looking for a church that has deeply ancient roots, and they're looking for a place that demands strong commitment, looking for a home. Now, how that goes in the long term, we will see. But I think all of these things are elements of what we're watching. And Job, your question about, is this a flash in the pan? I think about that often, but Byrne, your point, well, we're going on 5 years now. And the fact is we outlasted the IDW by a long shot.
Yeah, they came and went during that period.
That's right. They're the flash in the pan, not so with us.
The other thing though about home is also the broken home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So it's not just a matter of being dislocated, you know, in terms of geographically, but it's also, you know, I was living with my dad, now I'm living with my mom, and
one of the worst things you can ask an American is, tell me about your family.
Which I always ask.
Yeah, because you suddenly get these stories of someone, you know, who's been married 3 times, stepchildren, foster children, children, you know, the parents live on the other side of the country, they only go to see them at Christmas, and all of these strange tensions.
But my point was that we have a population here which is able and trust each other enough to articulate those conditions in their family life. And then Paul talks about looking for home. And they said, shit, that's the core of my growing up years. That's the issue of my growing up years. I didn't know if I belonged with my mom in her home or if with my dad in her home. And I heard stories today about, I mean, even what Sarah was saying, you know, in her conversation with Cassidy,
event, which was
that was the next
podcast
event.
Yeah.
And she was able to weave beautifully the fact that as a child of divorce, you almost naturally gravitate towards the estuary because you don't know where you belong. It's one or the other. You're in between space. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of a meaningful piece too. And again, it very much drew out the stories in the people, you know, in between events.
Well, the next thing that happened was that Cassidy Pulling and Sarah Fulmer did a live version of Cassidy's podcast where she interviewed Sarah about her journey, her spiritual journey, which includes time really considering Protestant theology and such, but also she herself has been moving towards Orthodoxy. But what she also did, as you point out, is she talks about her family life. And basically, and this is what people don't get, when you divorce, you're putting the atom bomb inside not just the family, but the faith. Mm. And I've always been, someone pointed out years ago, some great preacher, that the word idolatry and the word adultery are related. Because there is something, our faith is, you know, how many people have I met that man and wife, they get married, maybe later they have children, they break up, and then what happens to their faith after that?
Yeah. Well, and she talked about churches shunning her parents.
That was a sad story.
Yeah, and you just want to say, what are you doing?
And she told the story about her grandfather, and it was quite remarkable because often we would expect to hear a story about a grandfather who is, you know, kind of overwhelmingly out there and embracing and yada, yada, yada. And he wasn't so much that way, but for her still, he was home. And he would go to their home when mom and dad were arguing. And so, no, it was powerful. So that will come out too on Cassidy's channel, obviously. And you'll definitely want to see the Cassidy-Sarah conversation. It was quite powerful.
Yep. But again, it precipitated individual people then feeling compelled afterward and in between sessions, and when we started to have the other conversations afterward, there was another thing in between yet. We had
we had lunch that was made up of parts of what was left over from breakfast, because the European breakfast tends to look like the American lunch.
That's true. It was really good. Some amazing food. Amazing.
Yeah, but it was all like cold cuts and stuff like this, and we look at that and go like, okay, you want me to make a sandwich or put bread in? And it's just like, okay, this is lunch. You know.
You're exactly right.
What do you eat for breakfast?
Eggs, bacon, cereal, pancakes, you know, orange juice, tea, coffee.
When you come over to my house, Joe, I'll give you breakfast.
Yeah, deal.
Yeah. But yeah, and then after that lunch that was kind of almost a loaves and fishes affair, we then had
Panel discussion.
panel discussion about not the estuary, but the Bridges of Meaning online Discord server,
Yeah.
of which I can't really speak about because I think I lurked once and then just said, yeah, I'm gonna stand up.
You have your own emoji on there.
Do I?
Yes.
This is Byrne Power emoji.
What does
Yeah.
that mean? Someone puts that there and says, this is something this emoji said?
It means you can use in communication. So, for instance, right now on the Discord, photos of this event are circling around.
Right.
And there's this particular photo of you that you took a selfie with us in the garden. And people say, oh, this looks like an album cover. So,
Yeah.
So people have been photoshopping it and putting text on it.
Oh no!
Yeah.
And it's straight out of Landau.
Yeah.
and,
No, I was thinking album cover as I was taking it.
Yeah.
It was like
That's good.
Three Duchies and the Power.
So anyway, then people have you can respond to a message using an emoji, like a thumbs up, thumbs down,
Right.
you know, party, heart, eyes, whatever. But there's also Billy Byrne. And
Byrne's been memed.
I think
His
it's a
worst
big-
nightmare.
it's a big
That's right, as
video
long as I don't have to
anyway.
see it much. Yeah, someone's gonna figure out a way to get it into my comments.
There's
I'm
also-
sure someone will.
Yeah, that's just how it works. It's a meta language.
Yeah, you just made that happen just now.
You did. You actually did. You actually did.
Right. Go ahead. Nate and I did. So Paul, before we go on, before I forget it, I just want to say this. You know, you're going to have plenty of video material out of this when you get back to your channel, and I want you to try to put together at least one video that I know you like to, you know, a bit of the subject here and a bit of the subject there, but just where you just give your views on Europe.
Yeah, I should definitely do a Europe
you know,
video.
UK, Dutch, Germany,
Yeah.
and just the things, because this is your first time there.
Yeah.
And your first time coming to a place like this from America, especially you know, given your life history. I'm sure, like you were saying about the age and the history and stuff. That's how, you know. But I really love to see it through your eyes.
And I've done not none, but I've done relatively little of the tourist stuff. Usually one's first visit, let's say to Europe from America, you're hitting all the tourist stuff. Now we ate a lot of hotting. I can't say it right, I know. We ate some hotting. John gave me his food list. It was all delicious.
That's herring in English.
We saw the Delta Works. Maury Roos would be proud. We saw some windmills. We saw some great old towns in the Netherlands. But Germany here, I haven't seen hardly anything of Germany. But having I've always been a multicultural person. African American, Dutch American, American, Dominicans, Haitians, and all of this. I very much do like to try to see the countries through the people. And an event like this was just perfect because I could quiz a lot of these guys on, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And
We have a fair amount of Germans here, so.
yeah. So I very much should do a video just on Europe and what I've seen. So it's a good idea. So we were talking about the Discord server, which was interesting because in our local meetup, Joey has a rule: no talking about the Discord server at the meetup. So we can never talk about the Discord server at our meetup, which is
Joey's opinion on the Discord server is no longer relevant here.
Joey's opinion in the meetup is relevant.
He has joined the Alumni Association.
The alumni. So and I found that to be because I haven't been particularly active on the Discord server in the last 6 months.
Yeah, we miss you there, Paul.
But I'm sure I'll come back. I usually do. But that was a much more interesting conversation than I thought it would be.
God, I felt like I rambled all over the place.
Joe, I like hearing you. I like hearing you ramble, Joe.
But
You're a good rambler.
He is.
I think
Ramble some more.
Cassidy did a good job kind of keeping the questions straight up. And there was just people responding to each other. I liked that Teddy was in there.
Yeah.
Teddy did, especially Teddy being a new or fairly new member and his experience finding this place and trying to figure out where he fit in and what he could offer and wanting to, go further up and further in. It's just lovely. It also kind of solidified that the Discord isn't done yet. Now, I made a comment about, well, yeah, but there's this new server, the Discord v2, but I like this current one. You know, it's engineer fear. Like, wait, we have a system that works. Why change what works? It's an amount of conservatism I notice in myself, but I have no idea where another server will go, but I also have no idea where this server will go. And that's why I said, look, in the early days, we had a book club, we had book discussions, people would have off-the-cuff randos conversations. Why not slowly change this server as we have been slowly changing it? And you know, that's something that this was a good time for to discuss. And I also like how somebody like Ferdy, who isn't all that active anymore, still had a lot of good input. And I like that Dennis was there, who's now the new server admin. He's trying to figure out, well, you know, how am I a good server admin? Where do I fit into the role? Where do I want this place to go?
He's the new Joey.
Yeah, you know, I think he's a good Dennis. And, and you know, it's just, I thought it was a good part of the whole event altogether.
It's amazing to me how this whole event that it happened is amazing to me. You know, through the German estuary, Matthias is absolutely, you know, he's the driving force.
He's got a real organizational mind.
Yeah.
But also enthusiasm.
Yes.
I want to just clarify something. You guys may have already picked this up, but this is what happened. So Paul started talking about estuary leadership on his YouTube channel. Matthias caught that. He saw it. He was one of the first to sign up for the Estuary Leader Support Network. But he only stayed a short while. He said, if this is to be of any benefit to me at all, it has got to be in German. So I can't be doing this leadership training here in English. I got to set up something separate in German, and he did that.
Yeah.
So then he became a focal point of leadership for multiple German and Swiss estuaries, thereby creating the critical mass to be able to say, why don't we all get together and start a festival? Then he does that, and I already told him, I said, we have you to thank for this whole thing. He does that. He says, Paul and John, why didn't you come over? And there was absolutely no talk whatsoever about doing anything in Holland or Britain or Northern Ireland or anything like that. It was not until it was decided that we were both going to be at the German festival that there was any talk about, well, we're going to pay, you know, this much for tickets anyway. We may as well stay a little longer and figure out how we can make ourselves useful in other places. And that was the beginning of all organization for the Europe tour. But it started with Matthias saying...
Well, let me tell you how sly Matthias is. They get in touch with me, he and Cassidy, and they're talking about, they want me to come. And they said, and we're going to try to get Paul Vanderklay there. And I said, if you get Paul, I'm there. But I said, I'll come anyway. So, but the point was, they nailed me down, and then they hadn't approached you yet. And so they added this like a little cherry for you, just as a kind of, hey, you want to do this? And Byrne will be there. And, you know, not that I was the reason to come, but that he was smart enough to know that, you know, I think I can get Byrne. Because he said they have people who do talk about my videos for some reason. And, but yeah, so it's kicked off this whole thing where suddenly, you know, then
the whole thing just snowballed.
Then Van Donk takes over.
Well, I
setting up the
Van Donk's boot in my backside is the reason I do a lot of things. He just keeps kicking me. So, and it's a good kick. So I appreciate that. Keeps me doing things.
Swift.
Keeps me doing things. No, we all have our role to play in this.
Oh yeah.
And Job, of course, had to come because of the West Coast tour that got COVID.
Yeah.
I was approached by Matthias very early about there was going to be a thing in Germany, and I had been the year before, like 2 months after I'd become a dad, to say, oh, this is a weekend in Germany, you should come. And that was just awesome, you know. And my wife's like, yeah, I'll stay with the baby, you can go, which is pretty great of her. And then so like, oh, there's gonna be another one. Oh, longer, yeah, I'm gonna be there. And then later all this stuff with you guys also got, and it just expanded, and people got more enthusiastic and oh, I'm gonna be there, and became this whole meta discussion, new server, everything, and then before you know it, you're all just
Here we are.
Well, you were one of the driving forces behind all the things we did in Holland, which actually was substantial. I mean,
Well,
there,
yeah, but
there were multiple things that happened there.
that was kind of, that's not the right phrasing.
Well-
I'm trying to find friendly.
Don't minimize it, don't minimize it, you were
No,
a
no, no.
driving force
Not what
behind
I'm-
it.
Not what I'm saying. I was requested. I just like, oh, well, you know, they're gonna be there. Somebody needs to show them the Netherlands. Okay, but you know, that was mostly just Matthias and Cassidy organizing things together with the whole UK stuff.
Yeah, well, let's not forget how important Cassidy was.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
yes.
I mean,
Cassidy's been poking at this thing. The minute I said estuary, Cassidy starts in, well, I'll plan something, I'll put something together, because Sam and the Chicago boys were like, we want to start something, and Cassidy all along the way has been the one that put something together, so, yeah.
Well, she does have a company, an event,
right, and
she's
she
an event
used to
organizer.
work in real entertainment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Matthias knows how to manage things. So
Yeah.
this team of facilitators.
Yeah, they work very well together.
Yeah.
And so basically, after the discussion about the bridges of meaning, we had kind of it was a more casual breakdown
Yeah.
of people and some more great conversation, and then
Yeah.
started to take things down, wind up. Lots of hugs and handshakes.
Yeah. That was good. It was good. Yeah, one of the things that, so Justin, documentary
Wells.
maker, Justin Wells, was, I knew it was, I didn't know if I should say it or not, but one of the things he said to me,
Was that Justin Wells?
some of the out people in these videos.
No, we need his fame.
But, you know, one of the things that he said to me yesterday was, you know, it's not hard getting a conversation in this place. It's like, no, it isn't. These were horses ready to run, I'll tell you, when we mentioned that already. But
Well, you know, we talked about the emotional parts of the conversation, but don't forget the other parts of the conversation, the interest in everything.
Yeah.
And the intellectual curiosity, the real probing nature of so much of it. You know?
I had the amazing opportunity to talk to the guy who kind of represented the venue in the negotiations with the protesters.
yeah, because we should mention that
Yes.
the festival almost got canceled because some parties looked at Byrne's channel
I think they just looked at the titles.
and looked at Chad the Alcoholic's channel, which
Really?
is not even connected to this,
And also Marvin,
and also Marvin and two more V's,
Right.
and had objections and brought objections to the venue, and there was a concern that there might be protest, yada yada yada. Cassidy.
And they were definitely Antifa, types. Because, I mean, just when I read the criticism, particularly my stuff, I said, like, yeah, this is textbook. And I was kind of proud.
They didn't find any wrong with me. So
We're on the radar of Antifa.
Right. Yeah, don't.
So anyway, so there was that in the background, and nothing of that materialized, which was good. And I think if anyone who had concerns or objections of nearly any kind had come to this place and looked at what we were saying, what we were doing, what is the heart of this, I don't know how anybody could object to what went
Well, I
on.
almost thought there were a few people at the very end I hadn't seen during the whole thing, and I was wondering, are you them?
Yeah, I wondered as well.
Yeah, because they were looking at us kind of.
But anyway,
No, I think that the venue was organizing another
Okay.
event starting this evening, and they were making preparations for that.
Ah.
But the guy that, Manu,
Yeah.
that you talked with also,
Yeah,
I mean,
great
we
guy.
had two levels of conversation. One is that he's looking for a job and Joe might be able to hook him up. So that was nice to have that opportunity.
Oh, is that why?
Oh yeah, that's another reason, that is another reason why we kind of got conversing.
Okay, yeah, I'm expecting him on the Discord this Tuesday. And
Right,
we're gonna
right.
Set up a video conference.
Right. But the other thing is that he was the one who had some concern, and he had not been there for the first half until lunchtime, or Saturday morning. Yeah, yesterday morning. So he shows up a little bit later and kind of sat in the background and didn't really know what he was looking at. And then in the context of our conversation with Joe, he made the point, maybe you guys should do a little bit better job being clear about who you are so that there will be no confusion about your political loyalties, blah, 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 because we, as an organization, as a venue, have spent a lot of time cultivating our image in this community so that we now are members of good standing in this community, we're integrated, but we also feel we need to protect our reputation in that context. But he said that to us, and then we replied, and we said, we are about as clear
Exactly.
about who we are as we can be. And he saw that. When we explained to him that estuary is sufficiently nebulous and in between and sufficiently new and sufficiently fraught with chaos and changing landscape, he understood that it is not possible for, and not only that,
Yeah.
but he also understood, he also understood that there is no way you can completely insulate yourself. He understood that.
Yeah.
You cannot completely insulate yourself. There's a saying in Dutch, wie een hond wil slaan, kan altijd wel een stok vinden.
Precies.
If you want to beat a dog, you can always find a stick. And if people are out to find some fault with you,
Yeah.
Beat a dog, you can always find a stick. What is saying?
Yeah,
the
but
Dutch.
Joe just said something like precisely.
yeah. Well, I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. That is a Dutch expression.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that for our Dutch audience, so that they would feel welcome and included.
Yeah.
But anyway, no. But if you want to find fault with something or somebody, you can always do it. And I think that he made the transition during our conversation from, hey, you guys really got to do more to protect your image and protect your reputation,
Yeah.
to, nah, actually it can be done.
Oh, and I pushed back in a way that I don't tend to, where it's like, well, I don't really care about how other people see us, because as soon as I put down some sort of pretend political affiliation, what's that doing? Like, is it gonna mean that I won't discuss certain things? Because
Well,
that's how you're gonna interpret it. Like, oh, he has a left-wing political affiliation. Oh, that means he won't discuss right-wing things. You don't know that.
If a Satanist or Antifa or anybody came in, I think all our attitude is, let's talk.
Have a sit down.
Yeah.
Sit down in the estuary. We have a protocol.
But the guy did say that the people that he had contact with
Mm.
would not do that. They wouldn't be capable of doing
No, but that's because they're ideologically possessed. Anyway, but also you asked me Sunday out of the blue with some dude like, hey, can a Buddhist be an estuary leader? And like, yeah, why not? I mean, but the fact that question came up is also they're trying to figure out, are we navigating in a particular direction?
it. He's going to join Elsnet.
Well, I mean,
Love it.
I quoted a particular thing at him that he really understood, because I said, oh yeah, you can take refuge in the Sangha and the Buddha and the Dharma, and you're fine.
Yeah, we've got John Vervaeke for you. You'll be fine.
Well, and I looked at, so I don't remember the name of the venue because I don't speak German. I can hardly, boy, I feel like a newborn around this place. I can't read the language. But
Oversized newborn.
John.
Foster child.
But I looked at, because they had an English, they had an English on the website, the mission of the venue, and I thought, we seem exactly perfect for this venue.
Yeah, exactly.
We are exactly what this venue is about.
And he said that in the end.
Oh,
Yeah, he said that in the end.
I think they couldn't find anyone to host more apt for their mission than we
I
are.
think they would love us back next year.
Yep. He was super intrigued by everything, and he stayed, and we had a lovely other conversation we went into it a little bit deeper yet. I mean, this guy is a searcher just like all of us. He was looking for a home. And so he was given the task of being part of the negotiations with these people. And so he did say, you know, oh, maybe you could, blah, 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 blah. But when we said, no, maybe we can't, he accepted that.
Yeah.
You cannot streamline it and cultivate it to the point that it becomes lifeless.
Well, we can't define it.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean, yeah.
Well, we've pretty much gotten us up to this moment here, and coming up next is your journey, sadly minus Joe, to the UK.
Oh, but we're gonna go with Joe a long ways. He's gonna take us all the way to Monica Peace.
Yeah,
Whatever that means.
it's a little boy who's peeing.
Oh yeah. I've spent time with him. Depends on what he's wearing.
We're canceled for sure.
Yeah, but the way he pronounced it, no one but the Dutchies understood it.
So he's gonna take us to Brussels, and then he's gonna go home from there, and we're gonna go to England from Brussels.
Well, you know the problem with Belgians, right?
Yeah, they have their windshield wiper on the inside of the windshield.
No, they're awful.
Oh,
Oh, by the way, the best French fries I've ever had in my life are in Brussels, and they don't.
Vlaamse patat.
And all I can say is,
Vlaamse patat.
whatever you have had before as a French fry will just simply. I mean, they're not good for you because of the kind of fat they use. But all I can tell you is that it doesn't matter. You got to do it sometime.
This has been a food tour right from the start.
The whole problem is your framing of what is good for you. Which goodness?
Joy. So in the case of joy,
The great
give me a
freedom.
Belgian French fry.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I guess the food tour will continue.
Yes. And I'm looking forward to it.
And we're going to the UK.
Okay.
And
And we're gonna have delicious food in the UK too.
Yeah.
Oh, you can go visit
Well, this
them.
probably isn't going to come out until after we.
I'm going to put this out tonight.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't edit. That way
Okay.
things go out.
Well,
And
yeah.
I have to
That's
mention.
right. You don't edit.
I don't edit.
Do you? So there's a section in the middle here where.
What you see is what you get, baby.
Right.
But we are looking.
But send me a copy, and
I will give you a
my
copy.
version will be edited.
His version will be
it'd
pretty.
beautiful.
But I
In the meantime,
I took photos
Hey.
of the people just sitting around today, and I'd like to include a lot of those photos
Oh.
in this.
I
discussion.
can't wait for his. His version will be much better.
We
So
try.
now, what John and I are looking for in the UK is
More
a
food.
ride.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
explain that because I'm still a little foggy.
Okay, so we have been wonderfully treated by the British team. All our lodging is taken care of. Most of our transportation is taken care of. All the venues are all organized. Everything is in place. There is one missing piece. The missing piece is how will we get from Manchester to Kern-Ryan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but that's how we say it in America. Kern-Ryan, which is where the ferry to Belfast leaves. So we need to get on Thursday morning from Manchester to Kern-Ryan, and you can choose. You can, if you want it. The thing that we're offering is a 4-hour opportunity to be with Paul Vanderclay
You too could
in
suffer
a
like
car.
I did.
I won't be there. It's just these guys.
And-
Car's got to fit us and some luggage.
It's not me.
Not Byrne.
No. I'll be.
And Job will be, I'm free.
Yeah.
Never doing this again.
Okay, now well, if you guys just shut up for a minute,
Okay.
because I need to make this point.
Which Thursdays?
That will be Thursday, September 1st. No,
No,
August 31st.
No, that is
No.
September 1st.
Are you going that quickly?
Because Friday is
Tomorrow.
September 2nd.
Tomorrow's the 29th.
Thursday is September 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
On Thursday, September 1, if you are available to take your car to Manchester around 7 o'clock in the morning,
Oof.
maybe 8,
Is
You-
there no train?
9. It is a 4-hour drive from Manchester to.
Don't mind us.
I'm gonna add it edit this. I'm gonna.
No editing.
No, you're not.
All right. Okay. Well,
So,
shut up, you
September
guys.
1st.
On September 1st, we need a ride from Manchester to Kern Ryan, and we would like to get on the ferry at 3 o'clock. It's a 4-hour drive, which means we would like to get there at least a half an hour before then. 3 o'clock, 2:30. We need to leave at about 10:30 at the latest, but let's say 10 o'clock.
Think
So-
of the conversation you will have.
Think of the conversation you will have. I promise I will keep my mouth shut the whole way.
Yeah, that is such bullshit.
And you will have an opportunity to pick Paul's brain on any subject.
Bring a knife and fork.
You can talk about relevance realization. He might be able to explain to you the difference between God number 1 and God number 2.
Oh,
Finally,
wait. I asked him, he still didn't clear it up.
it doesn't matter. If he has have you ever given him 4 hours to do that?
Not as such.
No, that's what we're talking about here. Right now we have a 4-hour opportunity to explain God number 1 and God number 2. And as a matter of fact, I'll go one step further. If you are willing to do this,
But there's more, everybody.
there's more. If you are willing to do this, I will go. I'll let Paul sit in the front seat. I will sit in the back seat. I will film the whole 4-hour conversation, and it will get published on Paul's channel, and you will be famous.
Did you just use Paul's channel for your own nefarious purpose?
Unless you don't want to be filmed.
Unless you don't want to be filmed. But if you want to be filmed, and you want to have a conversation with Paul, you want to tell him your whole life story about how you deconstructed and reconstructed and constructed again, and then whatever it is that you want to talk to him about, like a good rando conversation, this is your opportunity to get that all for the cost of a tank of gas.
Right, and John likes fried fish, raw fish, does not like licorice, does not like long walks on the beach, and so you're filmed.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
So we land the
So we
plane.
land the plane. Any last things?
Let's say farewell and thanks.
Land the plane, land the plane, land the plane.
One
One
love.
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 Freddie, thanks to you.
Thank you,
Oh,
Freddie.
Freddie.
Okay.
We're ready for Freddie.